So Carl Clay, how you doing?
Good.
We're here at the Black Spectrum Theater 50 years later, man. Whoever thought that a half a century of work would take place in this venue? Tell me how you're feeling about it.
Actually, I feel blessed and privileged to be able to have seen the beginning and to see how far we've come and to be able to look forward and see still where we need to go. So it's a wonderful feeling. One of the things that I tell audiences who come to the theater, we recently put up a show called Black Love. And it's actually the first show that we ever did in the development of the theater. And so to bring that show back after 50 years and to do rewrites and pull it together and put it on stage, it just doesn't get any better than that. To see something that you tinkered with 50 years ago and to bring it back is just, it's powerful. And so I'm just enjoying everything now. I'm enjoying it. And so many people, so many places, and you know, a lot of people have come through here, and we appreciate their input of helping to sustain this theater.
Yeah. You know, in recognition of all those 50 years, I would be remiss if I didn't say congratulations on your recent Adelco Award for Lifetime Achievement.
Okay.
And what did that mean to you?
Well, that meant a lot, because I felt like, you know, I was always feeling like the new kid on the block, so to speak. So the Lifetime Achievement, I'm getting this with folks like Marjorie Moon and Woody King, and I always saw them as mentors and folks who came before me. So to be considered in that, you know, category and quality of artist was really quite rewarding, you know.
You know, Carl, I've known you over most of these 50 years, and what was it about going into the theater business that attracted you?
That's a good question. It really started as the writer. You know, I was writing stuff in my parents' basement and tinkering with stuff and doing a lot of reading about our history and who we were as a people early on in my teens. And my brother's influence, my older brother, Richard, was a musician. And it's interesting because he listened to everything also. And one day he's listening to Miles Davis. The next day he's listening to the Swingle Singers. The next day he's listening to Bach. The next day, so I was bombarded with all these different flavors of music. And I got into reading and listening to music at the same time. And so this idea of, you know, I know that sounds so like simple these days, but you know, back in the day, you know, the way recordings were made, you had to put on an album on a stereo and turn it on and go back over and put it back on the track that you liked, you know, to be able to hear that and then read and so forth. It just started clicking things. And I think one of the most influential times was listening to this Billie Holiday album and reading several books on our history, and it just became like a soundtrack, and it just spurred that whole creative process. And then you know, and then going to, you know, my school, you know, in high school, and being a part of the Clark Center for Performing Arts, there were a lot of artists around, and it's just inspiring. You know, when you read a lot, you start to synthesize ideas and ways of looking at things, and then next thing you know, you want to express that in some way and put it on paper. And so to be able to do that and then get people to actually listen to what you're saying and play out these parts becomes, you know, the next step. So, you know, people like Oscar Brown Jr., going to see a play with him, and just there's a lot of different influences. Music, the times, all of those things played a part in my early writing. But in essence, it was the writing that got me hooked, so to speak.
Yeah, talking about writing and paper, when you put the idea on paper about a theater, briefly walk me through a little bit of the steps, how that particular dream came to the reality that is Black Spectrum Theater.
An idea is an idea. The execution of that idea is a whole different set of skill sets in order to do that. And in my early development, coming to a theater, wherever we were rehearsing, and being able to take that idea and communicate it and begin to develop collaborative participation by the group and pulling things out of the actors, and then watch. I've always considered myself to be more of an artistic sculpturist than just a person who writes. You learn as a writer now that plays are not written, they're rewritten, and that it isn't a matter of sitting down in one setting. Now, some people have done that, but it's far and few in between. But it's the rewriting process, that reflective ability to come back over something that you might have written 6 months ago and to look at it again with new eyes and say, oh, okay, yeah, all right, yeah, I see where this is going. And to hear these characters speak to you. In my mind are my mother's 14 brothers and sisters, uncles, aunts, and all their stories. And so I usually attach one of those folks that I grew up with, and I say, yeah, that's my Uncle Guy. My Uncle Guy in this situation would probably this or that. And then sometimes it's just celestial, You get some ideas, or you get a dream or something, and you say, wow, where the hell did that come from? And so it's a combination of all that. But at the end of the day, it's a reflection, and so that's what plays are. They're rewritten. And then ultimately, it's the actor who takes that off the page and brings it to life. And, there are some writers who will have a fit if you change one word.
One word,
okay?
Yeah.
I've never been in that classification of writers. It's been more of you create something and you give it to the atmosphere in the sense of it's bringing it into being, and then the actors help to bring so many other things out of it, so that if you do the play again, I think it should grow from the first time.
Absolutely.
So I started putting on my works, 0.1, 0.20, 0.30, 4.0, 5. Because that's just what it is. You keep developing, and that's what I don't like about Broadway to some extent, because there's a lot of shows that should have been on Broadway for a long time.
Yeah.
But this idea that one person can come in and write something and put you out of business is, especially when you talk about the cultural relationship around, sometimes they don't even understand what they saw, but they can put you out of business. So I like this idea of molding something and continuing to work on it. And that's like what sculpturists do.
Exactly.
They keep molding.
Carl, what was your expectations for Black Spectrum Theater the first night the stage lights came on? What were your thoughts about the future of the theater when you first moved into this building?
When we moved into this building, we had already been around almost 20 years. And so coming into this building, there was a lot of pressure. We were the new kids on the block. I was the guy, everybody was much older than me, okay? Yeah. So it's like, are you gonna really turn this place over to this guy? And but it was, we had something that this community didn't have. And so so that was part of it. We had been doing good work in a small environment, and but it was a lot of pressure because it was this whole thing. How are you going to pay the bill in this joint? How are you going to manage this? So we had all kinds of plans and architectural drawings and how we're going to do this, and this place is going to be a recording studio. That place is going to be where we make videos. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And ultimately it all worked out at the end of the day. But a lot of pressure. But the first night that we did a performance in here, it was called Broadway Comes to Black Spectrum, because I had been in a movie with Cleavon Littles, and he agreed to come out and be a part of the first night that we opened here, and it was a grand evening. It was just beyond words, beyond words. Teresa Merritt, her and Cleavon Littles were the hosts that evening. Yeah, and we had quite a few performances here that were just spectacular, and it's a grand evening. It's something I'll never forget. The first night of performing here.
What are some of your fondest memories of some of the works that took place here?
We've done over 350 plays in here. The August Wilson plays go without question. Yes. We've done everybody from Lofton Mitchell to, Langston Hughes and people like P.J. Gibson and, Douglas Turner Ward and the names Lofton Mitchell. I'd have to give you I mean, the list goes on and on and on. We started to realize that we were leaning more towards creating new works. Yeah. And that was very important to us. So, but I also realized it was important for people to see some of the classics. So we started looking at doing what I call classical black theater. Yeah. And then creating some works that are now really make up a repertoire of plays that we've done here that we've developed over the years. Plays like The Magic Crown, which was written by Bob Law. Deadwood Dick, Legend of the West, or They Went That Away, Warren Burdine Jr., and Mae Jameson by Jacqueline Wade, and there's just these catalog of plays that we have that have really are unique to Black Spectrum in that respect. 2000 Black was a play, Black Love, and Kingfish. Kingfish was a piece that we had and we did very well with. So there's just so many plays. And then a lot of people don't know we have about close to 30 films under our belt. Yeah. And one feature-length movie that starred Dougie Fresh and Loretta Dubois and Anthony Chisholm, who just recently passed away. He was in all of August Wilson's plays, and the names, the shows, the directors. Bette Howard, who is a director here for as our resident director, directed many shows here, and her work will always be stand out as being representative of Black Spectrum theater in that respect. Everybody from Reggie Life to, Whitfield Sims and Fulton Hodges and, Imani Douglas, who directed a number of plays here. Celeste Bedford Walker is another writer that we did a lot of her plays. Really one of my most favorite playwrights. The list just goes on and on and on,
I just have two more questions for you, Carl.
Sure.
And the first one is, what was life for you in the theater during the pandemic?
At heart, I'm a futurist, okay? So when the pandemic hit, it's like, to use that phrase, Mama said there'd be days like this. So it's kind of like, I didn't see it coming, but I knew that the survival of it was looking ahead to not where we were, but how I expected things to be.
Yeah.
I'll be very honest with you. I have never had so much time off in my entire life. So when people were calling me, wow, what are we going to do? I was like, this is the most peaceful time I have ever had in my life. So it was relaxing. I got a lot of sleep. I also wrote a play. And also, but the theater did something interesting. We pivoted. And all of the years that we had videotaped all the shows here and videotaped them by any means necessary. Sometimes it was a Super 8, sometimes it was High 8, sometimes it was 3/4 inch, sometimes it was 1 inch, all these different formats. We were taping everything here. So it was like they were archival. So then I said, well, wow, suppose we took that archival stuff and turned it into a at-home video series. And so I spent months editing and creating this at-home video program series in which we provided once a week a video from our archives, and we offered to our subscribers literally 35 to 40 weeks worth of videos of plays that had been done. We went all the way back to the late 70s to a play called Deadwood Dick, Legend of the West. And brought it all the way up to the current time. So for us, it was a pivot and then a planning process of saying, okay, what's it gonna be like when this is all over? And so always thinking ahead. That was, you know, that's one of the things that I do. As I said, I'm a futurist. I like thinking about the way things can be and maybe they should be. Sometimes my view isn't always correct, but it's how I look at things sometimes.
Yeah. No, my next question is somewhat controversial, but I'm going to ask the question to you anyway.
Okay.
You know, in New York City, there are some iconic theaters, whether it's Frank's Theater up in Harlem, Woody King's, New Federal, Negro Ensemble, Black Spectrum Theater. What are your thoughts about over the years when traveling plays come to New York City and basically, and correct me if I'm wrong if you don't subscribe to this notion, but these traveling plays come to New York City and they suck all the air out of the cultural and theatrical existence of black theater, and all the attention is put on them. And I just was wondering if you had any thoughts about that at all.
Okay. First of all, this is a big world we live in.
Yeah.
So I always like to make an analogy of this. Several people go out to the ocean and they look out at the ocean and they say, I'm going to sail today. One person has a yacht, another one has a rubber tube, another one has a piece of board. They all get in the ocean. They all work. It all works. I don't knock the other process. I think what it does is, I think as African Americans, we tend to sometimes not realize that we have to compete in order to, and that the audience is saying, this is where our heads are at, you know? Listening to music, I always relate a lot of things back to music. I remember going to an Earth, Wind and Fire concert once, and Maurice White, they were playing the tune, it was the disco tune, Boogie Wonderland. And he said something at the beginning of the album, he said, at the beginning of the concert, he said, so y'all want to dance, huh? And I took that to mean that, okay, this is what y'all want to do now. We were talking about our history, we were doing it, but now that's what y'all want to do? Let's do it, okay? And I kind of look at it the same way in the theater world, that, yeah, those plays came to town and people were, oh my God, we're going to go buy 50 tickets and go do this. And we're saying, well, hey, we've been doing black theater and doing all, how come you're not coming? Well, it meant that there's some elements that this is what they want to do.
Yeah.
Somebody tapped into something that takes it up to another level. Now, the ideological part comes in as how far is too far? And if it is too far, where's your audience at?
Yeah.
Yeah, where's your audience? Everything has an audience, and so that's why I say it's a big world. So you have to be able to find your audience and work your audience. Maybe you're not going to have 1 million people come through, but success means that you're able to find your audience, nurture that audience, and that's successful.
Yeah.
A lot of filmmakers come to me and they say, well, how are you successful in a film? How much money you have to make? No, it isn't how much money you have to make. If you spend $25 making a film and you make your money back, you're a successful filmmaker.
Absolutely.
You're a successful filmmaker. So this idea of what we consider to be success, I think even Broadway, it has a lot of contradictions, which is, somebody will come out, see this play, and decide whether or not this is valid or not.
Right.
The audience decides what's valid in that respect. So, and if that audience doesn't see what you're doing is valid, I guarantee you there's an audience out there for what you see and what you feel and the rest of it. And that's how you develop audiences. And that's why there's not 3 television stations anymore.
Yeah.
There's like 100 of them.
100,
because
hundreds.
as opposed to broadcasting, we're narrowcasting.
Yes.
And so I've always looked at Black Spectrum as a narrowcast in some respects, although, we've expanded that idea of who we want to reach and the rest of it. But that, to me, that's what success is. And so I don't think about that much. Some of the stuff that's come to town also, I was like, I don't want to do that,
Right.
And I've told my staff, numerous times that, because we start talking about how can we make monies to do this, that, and the other. And then I say, well, the day we start doing something that's just about making money, I'm out of here. It isn't, for me, it's not just about that,
Right. Right.
So there's 3 ways you can do this. You can do this to say, I'm just doing it to make money, or you can do it because you say, it's a way to, pay the rent, and then the other becomes a calling. And so for me, it's a calling.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that money isn't important, because it is. And we've been sticklers about how we do certain things financially, and that's another reason why we've been around so long. And but it's money, it's politics.
Yes.
Anybody who tells you that black theater isn't politics,
Yes.
black dance can have more of a worldwide appeal because there's nothing coming out of their mouth.
That's right.
Once you have things coming out of your mouth, then people say, well, what are they saying?
Mm-hmm.
Where are they coming from? So there's a thing with that comes with that, if you understand what I'm saying here. So, but we, it's, our community has many different thoughts and many different ways of looking at things. And we like to believe we're a spectrum,
Yeah.
and spectrum is a wide range of frequencies or wavelengths that are emitted from a source, and that's the way we think of Black Spectrum. We have all these different variations of frequencies, and we try to tune into those frequencies here at the theater to acknowledge the different communities that exist within our community, So, that's the way we rolling.
But Carl Clay, I want to say thank you so very much. It's just a blessing to be in this space. As an aside, I got to say thank you so very much. When I owned Gillespie's Footwear and Accessories, we were doing pop-up shops before they had a name for it.
That's
and
right.
You would allow me to
That's right.
use the lobby
That's
to
right.
present.
And let me just say, you had some of the badass stuff that, you know, it was always
I appreciate
cool.
that.
I wish you was still in that business, man, because some of the stuff, I remember buying some of your stuff, and I still have some of it too, you know.
Yes.
I still have some of it too.
But I have to say, Carl, publicly, I just want to say thank you so very much for your support. Thank you so very much for what you've done to our culture.
Thank you.
You benefited theater. You made theater a special place here in Queens. And again, brother, I want to say thank you so very much for your time.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity.